welcome to the Stitch Sessions. In today's tutorial, we are going to work on a really easy fall project. We are inching closer and closer to the season, and a while back we made a duster sweater coat out of this really beautiful yarn. And I had mentioned that we were going to add pockets to that tutorial, and I thought this would be a perfect time to actually give you a quick little tutorial on how to create easy pockets, not only for that project, but basically for any project. Now, if you're new here, my name is Karen, and I love all things to do with crochet and crafting with crochet. And I'm always excited to share my crochet journey with all of my regular YouTube friends and my new ones. So welcome, welcome. So some of you may recall we did that tutorial creating that sweater coat. And I will leave a link for that in the description box down below because, of course, if you haven't seen it, you may want to go and check that tutorial out and kind of put it into perspective, the pockets we're creating for that project. So this is a really nice, simple add-on you can add on to any project, any clothing project, I guess. And basically, we just simply use the half double crochet stitch working into the front and the back loops to create this really pretty ribbing effect. And then we topped it off with that X's and O's stitch that we did use throughout the project to create that cardigan. You probably can't tell too much against the white background. It's just designed to create a little bit of definition for the top of the pocket. So I've already done one here. And you just want to make sure that your hand can kind of fit in it. So I didn't need my hand to dip all the way down. As long as the tips of your tallest finger are there, that's generally a good size. I know sometimes people ask me, well, how deep should I make my pocket? This is a really great way to figure that out, especially if you're making it for yourself or an adult. Just take your hand and just check out the average height there. Okay, so let's just dive right in. We're just going to quickly go over the materials to gather, and then we're going to get started on our pocket. Okay, so just like I used for the sweater coat project itself, we are going to use this really lovely yarn by Red Heart. It's the Huga yarn. They tend to bring it back out kind of in the fall, winter. This was a new kind of release a few years back, but I do notice that as the weather cools, they do bring it back. You can, if you have a hard time, I have in the past found it at Walmart. And if you can't find it at Walmart, I have found it on Amazon. Okay, so you can definitely find it there. And it comes in a 140 gram skein, which gives you 132 yards or 121 meters. You will not need the whole skein to create your two pockets, but if you've got some left over from the sweater coat project, if you did do it, then just a little bit would be plenty. And this color again is pearl. Now, and it is considered a bulky weight number 5, and they call for a 6.5 millimeter hook, which actually is the hook I'm going to be using today. And the 6.5 millimeter hook is also known as a K or a size 10.5. Okay. And as always, make sure that you have a handy pair of scissors and your yarn needle to sew in any ends. Make sure that it is a yarn needle and not a thread needle. See how that eye is a little larger? Because if you try to use a thread needle, especially yarn like this, it is not going to go through. So you'll definitely need this because we want to sew our ends and our pocket to our clothing item. So let's get started. The dimensions of my pocket are 6 inches in width and 7 inches in height. Okay, and I'll put up a conversion for metric up there on this screen. I know a lot of us are from Europe. Hey, everyone. And so that just gives you an idea of the dimensions. It's not a perfect square. It's a little bit longer than it is wider, but this will give you a better idea of why I chose the number of starting stitches. Okay, so to begin, we are going to place a slip knot on our hook here. And depending on how wide you are making your pocket, however wide you are going to make it, you just want to make sure that you chain up your initial chain in multiples of 3 and then you're going to add 2 more at the end. So I am doing mine in a 6-inch width. So for me, I am going to chain up 21 chains, and then I'm going to add 2 more at the end. So I'm going to have a total of 25 chains. Okay, so I've done my initial chain, and I have a total of 23 chains. Sorry, I think I had said I will have a total of 25, but actually if I chain 21 plus 2, that's 23. So sorry, my brain is all over the place. So I have 21 chains, that's a multiple of 3, and then I added 2 more at the end. So let's begin row number 1, and it's just going to be a row of half double crochet stitches. So nice and straightforward. So actually what we're going to do is we're going to find the 4th chain from our hook. Now I know this hygge yarn has a little bit of fuzz to it, so I'll do my best to stretch it out. So we've got 1, 2, 3, and 4. Remember, we never count this loop that's on your hook. And then we're going to place a half double crochet in there. So you're going to yarn over and insert your hook. You'll have 3 loops, and then you'll pull through all 3. Okay, and that's what you're going to do into every single stitch all the way across. So we do that again. We yarn over into the next chain, half double crochet, and you're just going to keep doing that to the very end. Okay, so row 1 is complete, and I now have 21 stitches in total. Okay, so remember those extra 2 chains were used to create a little bit of height so we can turn our work. Now, row number 2. So row number 1 is just basically what I call an establishing row. So we don't ever really repeat this row again. It's just to kind of give us a base row to work with. So row number 2, you're going to chain 2 and turn your work. And now we're going to continue working the half double crochet stitch, but this time we're going to work into the back loops only. Now it's important with the half double crochet we don't get confused in working into the side of the stitches. So it has loops along the side, and then it has loops along the top. This is the top of the stitch. That is what we're going to refer to for row number 2. So we're going to go into the very next stitch. So we're not going to work into this first stitch here because the chain 2 will count as a half double crochet stitch. We're going to go into the next stitch here and into the back loops only. So see, we're going to go down in the center of the top and pick up the back loop. That is what we're going to stitch into to create this row of half double crochet stitches. So again, yarn over into the next stitch. I look at the top and I push my hook in to pick up the back loop. And that's what you're going to do all the way down for row number 2. Okay? And then you'll see that what happens is it starts to push these front loops forward, and it'll give you a little bit of a ridge-like effect. So go ahead and do that all the way down to the end of your row. Okay, I just wanted to come on here just before the end because you might get to here. Now I have 20 stitches currently, and it might look visually like, oh, well, I've come to the end of my row. But remember, I need 21 stitches, so those chain 2s are going to count. So you're just going to have to turn your work there. The chain 2s are going to be your turning chains. So there is the top of it there, and I just want to insert my hook in through the top and pick up that loop so that I have the proper number of stitches. There we go. So I still have 21 stitches. That's the end of row number 2. You can see that ridge now coming through. So let's go on to row number 3. This is the last of our repeat rows. You're going to chain 2 again, chain 1 and 2, and turn your work. And for row number 3, we are going to work into the bottom front loops. So not even the front loop here. So remember, if we look at the top, we have our back loop and then we have our front loop. But what we're going to work into is the front bottom loops. Remember that they also have loops along the side. So this is what we're going to pick up for row number 3. So we're going to skip this first one because remember the chain 2 does count as a half double crochet. So we're going to yarn over and go into the next one. Again, the hygge yarn can be very fuzzy. It's easier to work with actually in real life than probably it is on camera. Hopefully you can see it well on camera. So I'm going to go into this next stitch here, and don't be afraid to kind of stretch them out. So there you go. I'm going to pick up that front bottom loop and half double crochet. It might feel a little weird if you've never kind of worked into loops before or parts of the stitch, but you get a really cool effect. So into the next stitch, the front bottom loop, picking that up. And again, just keep doing your half double crochets all the way to the end. You still want to make sure you have 21 stitches, and don't forget about that chain 2, the top of that chain 2 at the end of your row. So I'm just doing a few here so that when I turn my work, so this is now creating the back of your work. Now when I turn my work, look at that. So row 3 creates this kind of pushed forward knit look. Row 2 gave us that front ridge there, and that's the basic effect we're going for. Okay, so go ahead and finish a row number 3. Okay, so I've finished row number 3. I still have 21 stitches, and when I turn my work, you can really see the texture it creates. So I purposely picked this because our Sweater Coat Duster has generally these vertical lines. And so I wanted the pockets to have horizontal lines so that you can see that there is a pocket, but not create too much of a distraction. That's why I kept the stitching very, very simple. So you're now set to create the rest of your pocket. All we're going to do is we are going to repeat row 2 and 3. So if you're starting row number 4, just going to quickly kind of take you through it. You're just going to chain 2 again, and then going back to row number 2, we're going to work into the back loops only. Remember to always skip that first one, and you go in through the top. This part's going to be super quick and easy. Okay, so you're just continuing the repeat of that pattern. See that ridge there? So now what you're going to do is you're going to press pause. You're going to repeat row 2 and 3 until you reach row number 12. And then once you've completed row number 12, meet me back here, and I'm going to take you through the last few rows using our X's and O's stitch to just finish off this little detail here. Now, some of you, by the way, might think, well, what's the point? Like, I can't even really tell that's an X and O because of the hygge yarn. But the point of this is that it creates a different texture. So you can see that from afar. You don't really know because of this yarn that it's an X's and O. But because it has a bit of this lacy effect, it does create like a difference in texture, and I really love that. You can really tell it's the top of the sleeve, and it creates a nice little cap off. So finish your 12 rows, and then I'll meet you back here in just a bit. Okay, so I have completed 12 rows, and so I have something that looks like this, and you can see the ridges are really kind of coming forward now. It gives a little bit of that knit type of look. So it's nothing too crazy. It's just a subtle texture. So now we're going to do our last few rows, and that is the X's and O's stitch. So what we're going to do is we're going to begin this row by chaining 3. 1, 2, and 3. We'll turn our work. This will count as a double crochet stitch. So next what we're going to do is we're going to skip over the next stitch, and into the following stitch we are going to place a double crochet. So you'll pull through 2, and then you'll pull through the next 2. So you've got a bit of a gap there. Next we're going to chain 1, and now we're going to come back to the very first stitch where we chain 3 out of, right there. And we are going to place a double crochet in there. So what I like to do is I like to just kind of come in from behind, because we are going backwards here. So I like to come in from behind to insert, and then pull up that loop and resolve a double crochet as usual. Okay, just like that. And that's our X stitch. So you can see where it crosses in front, and that chain 1 just helps to create a little bit of separation between the top of those 2 stitches. So with the hygge yarn, of course, It just makes it a little bit tricky to see, especially this first one. It might not look like anything just yet, but with subsequent stitches, you'll be able to see that it's creating that nice little X stitch. So next, what we're going to do is we're going to skip the next 2 stitches, 1 and 2, and into the third we'll place our next double crochet stitch. Okay, chain 1, and then we're going to go back 2 stitches, 1 and 2, and into that stitch there we will place a double crochet. So you're always coming back to create that X'd effect. Okay, so again, there's the top of the X, there's the bottom. If you stretch it a little bit, you can kind of see where it's creating the gaps there. I'll do that one more time. So we skip the next 2 stitches. So that one's already been worked into. 1, 2, and into the third, we'll place double crochet, chain 1, and then come back 2 stitches, 1 and 2, and double crochet into there. Just like that. Okay, and you're going to do that all the way to the very end of your row into the last stitch. So I'm just going to meet you at the end here to talk about how we're going to end off this row. So this is row number 13. Okay, so I'm coming up to the end of the row here and I have 3 stitches left. So in total, we've created 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 X's, and we will create the 7th here. So it's going to be a little bit different at the very end. So you're going to skip the next 2. Whoops, so that one's been worked into. 1, 2, and remember here is the top of our chain 2. So we're going to work into that, and we're going to double crochet. Then you're going to chain 1, and we're going to go back 2 stitches to do our last double crochet. However, it's going to be a little bit of a change here. We're going to insert as usual, and we're going to pull through the first 2 loops. But before we resolve this, we need to create our anchor stitch at the end here. So we're going to yarn over again, go back into that same stitch, which is that top of that chain 2, pull through. And then we're going to pull, so we have 4 loops right now. We're going to pull through only the first 2. So basically we've got 2 unresolved double crochet stitches and you've got 3 loops on your hook. You're now going to yarn over and pull through all 3. So you've created the last crossover and the final double crochet into 1 stitch only. Okay. And there you have row 13. So now we're going to do this one more time. We're going to go on to row number 14. And again, we're going to chain 3. Okay. We're going to turn our work. And we're going to do the same idea. So we're going to skip this first one here. You will skip the chain 1. So you'll skip this first one, you skip the chain 1, and you go into the next, and you will double crochet. So we're basically placing X stitches on top of X stitches. Then you'll chain 1, go back 2 stitches, right there, that's the base of our chain 3, and you'll insert your hook there. Just like that, okay? So again, it kind of should be a little bit easier, and I know, guys, this Hygge yarn is not the best, but see, there's where that X is, so it should be a little easier to find. So when we're going over 2 stitches, we have 1, which is the first part of the X, the second stitch is the chain stitch, and then this is the 3rd stitch we go into. So we double crochet, chain 1, and then we go back. And this is where you can really just feel your way through. See, there's the middle of the X there. We'll go back in through there, and that's, whoops, I need to yarn over. And this is where we're going to double crochet. just like that. Okay. Now I do have a tutorial on the X's and O's stitch itself. So if you're kind of struggling with this yarn, which I can find it just fine, but it could be on camera, it might not relate. I will put a link for it in the description box down below. I'll even put a little card up here, right here, just so you can give it a quick little click if you're having a bit of a hard time seeing with this yarn, if this is your first time working on the X's and O's stitch. But once you see it a little bit more up close, you'll realize it's actually fairly straightforward. So I'm going to go ahead and finish this row number 14, and then we've only got one more row left, and then we'll be ready to sew on our pocket. Okay, I'm just at the end of row number 14. I just wanted to make a little note here. Because we chain 3 at the beginning, some people chain 2. I like to chain 3. At the beginning, it actually inadvertently will create an extra stitch, because see, this is my last X stitch. So if I were going to go into, I would skip 1, 2 into the third one, I would go into there. But that means this chain 3 would be kind of sitting there loosely. So for the last X stitch, I'm actually going to skip 1. I'm going to skip the chain. I'm going to skip this last stitch, and I'm going to go into the top of the chain 3, okay, to create that first. And I'm going to just pull it up a little bit looser, and I'm going to create my double crochet. Then I'm going to chain 1, and I'm going to do my final stitch. So I will go back into this first stitch. So in a way, I'm going to skip 3 stitches here, okay? Then I go back 3, insert, whoops, insert, and before I resolve that, I'm going to go back to that top of that chain 3, insert into the same spot, pull through the first 2. Remember, I now have 3 loops on my hook, and now I'm going to yarn over and resolve both of them into 1 stitch, and this helps us kind of come back to that original stitch count, just like that. Okay, so now we've completed round number 13. So if I put my pocket down, and again, I'm just going to put my hand here, and yep, that's a good size. Like, some people are happy with their hand just going in this far into the pocket, so this is a great opportunity for you to customize to the height that you like. But like I said, I like to be able to kind of put a big cozy sweater like this. I want to be able to put my whole hand in there. So I'm pretty happy with that. So now we're just going to do a final little trim. And this is a row number 15. And so we're going to begin by chaining 2, turning our work. And now we're going to go back to crocheting half double crochet stitches. So the chain 2 will count as a stitch. So we're going to go right away into the space right here, and we're going to half double crochet. And then we're going to go into the next space. Sorry, that is a stitch. Okay, so we're going to go into the next stitch. And then we're going to go into the chain space. So pretty straightforward for this last row. You will go into the stitch, into the next stitch, and then chain space. So stitch, stitch, chain space, stitch, stitch, chain space. Nice and easy. Okay, so I'm coming up to the very end here. This is my last X stitch. I'm going into the space, going into the last stitch. And remember, there's a chain 3 here, so we're going to work into that stitch just like that. Okay, and then you just want to make sure you have 21 stitches going back across. And your pocket, so if I fold that over like that, yep, pretty happy with that, nice and even. And your pocket is complete, nice and easy, right? So this is one of the easiest ways to create pockets. It's simply a square or rectangle, and then you're going to sew it onto the garment. You've seen me do the camel stitch cardigan where I actually created the pockets kind of to look like they're built in. That's a whole other way to create a pocket. And if you're curious about that, I'll leave a link for that one in the description box down below. This, I would say, is the super easiest way to create a pocket. So now all I'm going to do before I fasten off here is I want to leave a really long tail, because this is the tail I'm going to use to sew my pocket to my coat, okay? So I'm going to sew from this corner down the side, along the bottom, and up the other side. So I just like to take the tail, a little bit of yarn here, and kind of just trace it around. And then I always like to do double the length, because as you sew, it does suck up a lot of yarn. So I've gone up and then back around twice, and now I'm going to snip off my yarn, just like that. And this is where I would then pull the yarn through all the way to then fasten off my row. Ta-da! Okay, so now I've got 2 pockets. And they look just like this. This one also has a tail here. And your pockets are complete. So I hope you found that super easy. Of course, if you have any particular questions, just make sure to leave them for me in the comment box down below, or just email me directly at info@crochetcrafty.com, and I'm more than happy to answer any questions you may have. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Hey, wait a minute, aren't you going to show us how to sew these pockets onto the garment? Absolutely, I am so going to do that. I am just giving the opportunity for those that are very experienced. You can log off now, because pretty much the pocket's done and you know how to sew a pocket on. But for those of you that want to follow along and need a little bit of guidance on how to sew your pocket in, this is the next step I'm going to take you into next. So let's sew our pockets onto our cardigan. Okay guys, so I've made both of my pockets and I'm now ready to sew it on. So the most common question is, how do I know where to place the pocket? So I've already sewn this one in. So there it is there. It's got a little bit of a crooked edge there, but hey, that's what makes it art. So generally, I will take the cardigan or sweater and I'll just fold the sleeve over like this. So just kind of fold it over. And wherever the wrist area falls is generally where I want the pocket to be. So actually it kind of sits there. So just somewhere around there. So this is generally where my wrist is going to be. So if I just put it beside that. So right where my sleeve, my cuff ends is relatively where I want my sleeve to be. So I've done this side, and so now I'm going to do the same thing on this side. And so I'm just going to fold that down again, and it's relatively going to be in the same spot. So I just used this little ribbing here to give me a guide as to where I want my pocket to sit. So my outside edge is going to be sewn along there, and I'm pretty happy with that height. And then I just want to make sure that they look relatively even. A little trick I did is I just counted up how many of these X stitches that I had before the pocket. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And then I just came here and I did the same thing. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So that's going to give me my similar height. There you go. Okay, so let's get to the sewing. Okay, so we will actually be working on this with the right side facing out. So let's begin. So I just want to make sure that this outer edge is going to sit nicely there. So I made sure to leave a nice long tail. And if you feel better, I would recommend pinning this down before you start to sew, just so that you feel secure that it will sit in the right spot consistently. But I feel pretty confident without having to pin it. So this is where my tail ends. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to insert my needle down, and I just want to make sure it's going all the way to the back. So this is why it's important to actually have your hand inside, because it would be very easy to sew the pocket shut to the back panel, which we do not want. So here it is here. And so we're just using the mattress stitch, so it gets a little bit awkward here. Let me just turn it this way. So that means we're going to go in through the back and then out through the front. So there's my pocket. And so I want to make sure to try and use this guide here with these front loops, because if I use the X's and O's, there's not much there to work with. So I'm just going to come back in through there and then pick up a loop along the side there. And then pull it through the front, just like that. And that is basically it. Now you're going to have to really, if you are newer to crochet, 1000% I will say pin this down, because see how it's moving around? But because I kind of know where I'm going to go with this, I feel okay with that. So just make sure that you're keeping the pocket square in the right spot. And then, so you're coming up and then you're going down. And what I'm trying to do is I'm always trying to catch at least a couple loops. These are all the edges of the rows, okay? So I just want to make sure that I've got a couple loops, and then I'm going to go down in through that loop there. And then pull it all the way through. And then I'm going to come back up into the next loop. So now I'm just going to help my needle through right there. And then I'm just going to pick up a few loops on the front side here, just like that. And pulling that up there. And that is basically it. You're going to do that all the way down. And so, of course, what you want to make sure that you do is you keep it consistent, right? So you want to keep it right along that ridge, right there. And then when you come across the bottom, just make sure that I have that tail sewn in there. And then you're going to do the same thing across the bottom and then up the other side. And the other side is even a little easier because you've got that last edge there with the front loops, that little knit stitch. And that's it. So you're going forward and back and forward and back. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to go down here and across the way, and then I'm going to meet up with you when we're on this side. I think just filming wise, it'll be much easier for you guys to see. So let me just sew the first side and bottom, and then I'll really kind of zoom in and show you the other side there. Okay, so I have sewn down this side and the bottom. And so I'm just coming up the other side here, and I thought this might be a better side to give you a close-up because we've got these beautiful ridge stitches here to work with. So I just came out, so now I'm going to go in through the front, again, just picking up a couple loops at the edge. And then I'm going to insert, so I have this nice guide here. I'm going to go in, and then I'm actually going to just pop it back out and pick up another loop there. So that's pretty much it. Really, really straightforward. Just going in from the front and then following that guide there and then coming back up and then in through the back. And you do that until you get to the edge of your pocket. Okay, so what I did on the other one is I came around along the bottom, up the side, and I still had a bunch of yarn left over. So what I did is I just reinforced it as I sewed back down and across, and I actually did have enough to do that. And I like that idea because it just makes my pocket feel like it has more sustenance. So see, there you go, nice and sealed. And that's it. That is sewing on your pocket. So I'm just going to finish this up, and then we've got pockets on our sweater. Okay, I have completed sewing both pockets onto my cardigan, and there we have it. So now we have pockets on this cozy sweater coat, and I just love how it came out. I'm going to so enjoy wearing this in the fall and into the winter. This is just so lovely and cushy. And remember, if you have not seen the actual sweater coat tutorial, there will be a link for it in the description box down below. But in this tutorial, it was just all about how you can add some simple pockets to any of your crochet sweaters or cardigans. So I hope you found it Really simple, really quick. Anyone can do it. It's just crocheting a square. If you do have any further questions, you guys know you can always leave me a comment in the comment box down below, or you can always reach me directly at info@crochetcrafty.com. And don't forget, come visit me on the website at crochetcrafty.com and check out all of the bonus materials we've got there for you. We've got crochet sizing charts. We've got access to all of our crochet series. So this year we're doing Shall We Crochet, as you know. Last year we did Life's a Beach and many more. So make sure to check that out. Don't forget to sign up for my monthly newsletter because I give you even more bonus behind the scenes material. And I also gift you a free written pattern every month. And if you're curious to check out some more of my patterns, you can find those on my Etsy shop at Crochet Crafty Canada. Thank you so much, guys, for hanging out with me this week. I look forward to seeing you guys next week for a brand new tutorial. But before I go, don't forget, make sure to come say hi to me. I'm on the socials, on Facebook and Instagram at The Stitch Sessions. I love it when you guys come and say hello and tag me in your creations. So guys, happy crocheting. I hope you have an amazing day today. Take good care of yourselves, and I will see you in next week's session. Bye-bye.